that is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons a podcast shall rise. H.P. Lovecraft, Weird Tales, Ramsey Campbell, Cthulhu, Laird Barron, Silent Hill, Brian Lumley, Dagon. There's something sinister out there in the cosmos, and the tendrils run deep throughout the universe. Only one woman dares to traverse the web. Mary SanGiovanni, who once again is up to cosmic shenanigans.
Hi folks, welcome to Cosmic Shenanigans. This is Mary SanGiovanni, and as always, I'm up to shenanigans of cosmic proportions. In fact, this week, we are going to have a talk about actual cosmic shenanigans going on in the universe. A cosmic horror potential in the actual real world, in the real universe here. Now, I am going to apologize in advance because a lot of this is going to involve science, which, as much as it fascinates me, is not really particularly my strong suit. So I'm going to try to simplify it. And of course, if any scientists out there are listening and want to correct any, mistakes I make in the actual science of this, by all means, please do. What we're going to talk about today is an interesting concept that I came across called white holes. Okay. Now let me give you some background as to why this actually came across my desk, so to speak, in terms of cosmic horror. See, there's a theory that deep out there in space, okay, scientists have discovered a void, a black void, and a super void, in fact, they call it, which means I'm assuming that it's pretty big. And this super void is, I guess they have noticed this because there is, a lack of light, a lack of stars in that general area, and they're trying to figure out why this is. It's apparently much colder in this void than it is in the rest of space, around it. I mean, by significantly colder. And it is devoid of stars and planets and whatnot. And one of the theories is that they think another dimension, another universe, accidentally bumped into ours and caused this void. It basically, and we've talked, I think, once or twice about the actual real scientific possibility of other dimensions, other universes besides ours, which is significant in cosmic horror because it's often the origin point of whatever the horrors are, wherever they're coming from. And in a real world sense, it does suggest a certain insignificance. If we're not the biggest, smartest, most important beings in our universe, then we're certainly not the biggest, smartest, most important creatures in multiple universes. So there is that sort of nihilistic introduction, this sort of revelation of things and forces and ideas so much bigger than just even, the whole of humanity. So I went looking to try to figure out what other kinds of scientific theories seem to support the idea that we have multiple universes out there that are connected. Now, I've come across two theories, and again, my science isn't great, but they look to be two related but not exactly the same theories, that there are multiple parallel universes where there are infinitely countless versions of all of us that are skewing different timelines. Every time we make a different decision, we create another branch into another parallel universe where another version of us is making the decision we didn't make, things like that. And that we're all the us's are connected somehow in by threads, I guess, singularity threads. I think that's one of the basic ideas behind string theory. Now, the other theory, the one that I think I tend to subscribe to more because it sounds less creepy or I don't know, it somehow seems like it makes more sense to me in my head, I guess, is the idea that there are other parallel universes with completely different laws of physics, completely different universes with different sets of planets, different stars, different beings out there, different sentient life out there. And that does seem to be supported by science as well, because there are particles and also scientific events, things that seem to happen that scientists swear are not part of our planet or couldn't happen based on our own laws of physics. Now, that doesn't mean that our laws of physics can't change, because we've made, in the thousands of years we've been around, we've made a lot of amendments to scientific theories, like the world being flat, or that the sun and moon revolve around the earth, things like that. We have discovered that, we are not always correct with what we assume cannot be. But I sort of like the idea from a cosmic horror standpoint that, and it is shared by some scientists, that some of these things that we're seeing that we thought could not exist in our universe and that don't seem to last very long once they're here are actually things that are output from other universes. And to me, I think that's where the cosmic horror interest lies, because that's where we get to the idea of this theory of white holes. Now, if you know anything about black holes, and again, I know that science is now starting to suggest that maybe black holes don't exist, or they don't act the way that we thought they did, that they are much more about time than they are about space. But if we go by the basic theory, or the common theory, I guess, about black holes existing as events or objects, I guess, in deep space that are so dense and so large and powerful that they basically draw in everything. And again, my science is a little iffy here, but my understanding is that the farther into a black hole you go, until you get to the singularity, near the event horizon, that it just keeps getting denser and denser and denser and denser and denser. And one of the reasons scientists have developed this idea of white holes is that a black hole will basically suck up anything near it, including light, and including, whole planets, and apparently including other black holes if they're close enough and small enough. And so you keep getting this continually denser, more powerful force that is drawing in, and until a point, people thought it was drawing in and destroying everything that it drew toward itself. That it was spaghettifying them, basically stretching them out and compressing them, and that time slowed, and that your whole sense of everything that you know about time and space is just different in a black hole. There have also been theories about black holes connecting to wormholes. And the reason for that is because there's a scientific principle, as I understand it, that states that, energy cannot be created or destroyed. Apparently information seems to fall under this. I'm not exactly sure what they mean by information, unless it's just basically anything that isn't energy, just, I guess, substance or matter maybe. But the idea is that it can't be created or destroyed. It can only be moved. So then where does all the stuff that black holes suck up, where does it all go? Well, that's where we get to the theory of white holes. White holes, some scientists believe that if a black hole were to die, it might become a white hole. But the more common theory that I'm seeing is that a white hole existing on the other end of a black hole functions as the complete opposite. It would be like if you had a vacuum and the tube of the vacuum was sort of threaded between two universes and poked out the other side of another universe. And that's what I think is fascinating. Whereas a black hole draws everything to itself, a white hole expels everything, throws it back out into the cosmos, and that it glows very brightly. Now, One of the ways it was explained in an article that I saw on, I believe, Gaia, and again, I apologize if these are not incredibly credible sources, but I've been, I found a couple of different sources talking about white holes and other dimensions, and this was one of the sites that came up. And they said it apparently works on a Schwarzschild geometry system. That Schwarzschild geometry implies that a black hole and a white hole would be connected by a wormhole in the middle, and that two distinct universes connected at their horizons would be surrounding the black hole in one end and the white hole in the other end. And that this Schwarzschild geometry basically says that these things are related but opposite. Because it gets into general relativity and the gravitational field outside of a spherical mass. And again, not all of this makes a whole lot of sense to me. I'm just kind of giving you the layman's basic version of what we're looking at here. But some of the things that I do think are interesting is that some scientists think that really, really bright light that we thought was coming from a supernova might actually have been a white hole. And here's what I think is interesting. Here's where I think the cosmic horror stuff is interesting. If it's true that a black hole is in one universe, and then the wormhole, the connecting them, leads to a white hole in a different universe, then what happens is our black holes are sucking up stuff and spitting that stuff out into another universe, or into a basic blank canvas of empty space where a new universe can be born. I think that's kind of cool in a way, but it's also kind of scary, because that would mean that black holes in other universes would have white holes in our universe, and maybe spitting stuff out from those universes into ours. Now, that could also be kind of cool too, getting mass and material and, rocks and bits of planets and whatnot from a whole other universe. But what else can get spit out through those things? Now, there's a theory that we, at this moment, and it seems to be a fairly solid theory, that we can't travel through a black hole and end up in a white hole for the reasons I mentioned before, that the closer you get to the center of the black hole, your mass increases to the point where it would basically kill you. It would basically crush anything that you tried to send through, except for teeny tiny little particles. And we're not quite sure what would happen if we were spit out through a white hole on the other side anyway. And there certainly wouldn't be any way to go back. I mean, it's kind of like a one-way ticket ride, So, but what I find interesting about this is that what if there are, in other universes, with other laws of physics and other ways of, building on those laws of physics and maybe advancing their own technology, what if they have found ways? Or what if they have adapted in such a way that the increase in mass doesn't affect them and doesn't bother them? What if that's a biological aspect of these beings to begin with? Then theoretically, it would be possible. We even have scientists now who are talking about, and again, it's all theoretical, but they're talking about using certain types of exotic matter, which I think is related to black matter, but I'm not sure. But there are certain types of exotic matter that could stabilize a wormhole and that actually make it possible for travel. But again, it's all theoretical. There's a theory that our whole universe, the whole Big Bang, was created by some universe spitting out the little baby bits of our universe through a white hole into our universe. And this is how we've grown and developed and become such a massive universe in and of itself. The other thing I've noticed, and I'm bringing this up because, again, although I am not 100%, plugged into all the ins and outs and details of it, this source shell geometry implies that if a wormhole is connecting a black hole and a white hole with two distinct universes connected at their horizons, this would be the Einstein-Rosen Bridge. I know that the Einstein-Rosen Bridge is a principle, and that principle, and I guess principles related to it, are things that are used when we hear about CERN, or we hear about, hadron colliders that are moving tiny little particles from one world to another. I think it came up in an article about these particles that seem to be coming up out of the ground. I think it was in Antarctica, that seem to be not from our world, and that could only exist maybe a couple of seconds in this world because they basically defied our own laws of physics. And again, I think this is kind of fascinating, this idea of this Einstein-Rosen Bridge where we have two universes connecting, that maybe that's, the stuff in between universes, the stuff that I've talked about in my own work in cosmic horror. I called it the convergence. It was the stuff between other dimensions that very, very, very few types of creatures knew how to traverse safely, if at all, that it would actually deconstruct people, human beings. It would deconstruct human beings if they even tried to pass through it, but that there were types of entities that could do that could move from, not just from one universe to another, but through all the in-between space, which I think we can barely even comprehend at this point, what that might be made of. Maybe it's dark matter, maybe it's whatever this exotic matter is, maybe it's, whatever wormholes are made of. I'm not sure, but I like the idea that we have this sort of, that science seems to be backing up some of the fundamental principles of cosmic horror, that we have the idea of other universes and things in our universe that can access these other universes, even if they're basically just debris. It makes you wonder, what if maybe some of the stuff that we don't understand, that we can't explain, some of the things that we have attributed to gods and monsters, is not just some debris from another dimension, where maybe that stuff is perfectly natural and perfectly normal. I like this idea that about white holes. I think it's a sort of a fascinating concept that basically opens up, in a real world sense, it opens up some ideas that to me seem very cosmic horror-y. For example, this revelation that, not only might we not be alone in the universe, our universe might not be alone in the cosmos, and that, again, that however impossible it may seem for human beings to do it, that it may be possible for travel between one dimension and another. I think that a lot of the quantum physics stuff that I can understand, the stuff that I can read and still process, as a non-scientist, seems to suggest that whatever is, and honestly, this is an idea that has been reflected by, a lot of magic systems for, thousands of years, that what is without is also within, that we are basically from a macrocosm to a microcosm repeating the same patterns. And so if they're looking at how black holes and white holes are connected out there in the universe, then they're looking at how those same particles or those same concepts of travel or movement can be reproduced on perhaps a smaller scale for human beings. I think, unless I'm wrong, I think that's what CERN tries to do. I think at least that's what we believe, in perhaps, fiction or conspiracy theory circles is what Hadron Colliders may be doing right now, is opening up these little holes to other dimensions that we don't understand because there's so much of this Einstein-Rosen Bridge concept that is still beyond us. But again, what I find fascinating is if it can go one way, then there's nothing to say that it can't go back toward us. That if we can expel things from this universe through a black hole into another universe, then perhaps something can do the same on the other side. That there may be other scientists in other universes trying to expel stuff into our universe. And what might happen if that were the case? What would happen if, in these Hadron Colliders, we're creating these tiny black holes, and those black holes are creating white holes on another side somewhere, and we're sending things through, and we have no idea where we're sending them to? What if scientists on the other side are even less careful than that? What if they're sending things they don't want anymore, things that are problematic for them? What if they're sending things that in this universe, my understanding is that, there is not necessarily, if it exists in one universe, it may not necessarily be able to exist in another universe, but what if it can? And what if it is somehow harmful to us? I think there's endless cosmic horror possibility, because what it says is that there's endless possibility in a multiverse, not even just endless possibility in the universe. There's endless possibility in multiple universes for multiple things to be in ways that we can't even begin to comprehend because they don't follow our own laws of physics and science and what we know and what we understand. I saw one article explain it as if we were goldfish in a pond and we understood all life exists as it does in this pond, where you can swim forwards and backwards and sideways and diagonally, and you can go up, you can go down, but all of it exists in this pond. And then a giant hand comes in and scoops you out of the pond and lifts you up into the air. You're basically dealing with an entire environment that is completely unfamiliar to you, and at this point, inconceivable. That it would have been inconceivable until this moment that such an environment could even exist, because it's so far outside of what we know can be and can happen. One of the things I want to point out to you, to the listeners and to fans of cosmic horror, is to keep an eye on these articles, because they keep popping up. You'll see a little article here about waves that are popping up, some type of waves that are coming up out of the ground in the Antarctic. And then you'll see scientists discover that the super void, way out in space might be the result of two universes bumping into each other. Or you see, are white holes real? New science shows some interesting results. These little things keep popping up. And if you take them even a step further down the rabbit hole there, they do seem to connect to certain concepts that we've had about cosmic horror for decades. And it's really kind of fascinating. So one of the things to keep in mind in our great universe full of shenanigans out there is that there may well be doorways between dimensions that we don't know about. And I look forward to seeing what science can prove or disprove about that in the future. And that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed our little real life, dipping our toes into the real life potential cosmic horror of the universe out there. And next week we'll be getting back to some cool fiction, and we'll be talking more cosmic horror in a less concrete and NASA sense. So I will see you guys next week. Okay, bye.
You can listen to this episode and all previous episodes for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play Music, and wherever else podcasts are available. Cosmic Shenanigans is written and produced by Mary SanGiovanni. Our theme music is by Xander Harris. Our engineer is Matt Wilderson. Check out his books on Amazon.com. If you enjoyed this show, you might enjoy our other podcasts, Defenders Dialogue and Grindcast. To advertise on Cosmic Shenanigans, visit briankeene.com and click Podcasts.